Tell us a little bit about what you saw and being able to relay that message to Cora when you watched Kimbrel pitch and kind of help out so he wasn't tipping his pitches.
So tipping pitches, we hear about it all the time.
People at home understand what tipping pitches is all about.
It's amazing.
And that's remarkable.
Alex, I'd like to talk to you about an epidemic sweeping this great nation.
I didn't know we were starting with bird flu chat, but okay.
No. I'm not talking about murdering chickens. I'm talking about people in the stands at baseball games not knowing what the fuck is going on with the Athletics.
Okay. Many people are saying this. Many people.
You and I have spent no less than 20 hours on this podcast and probably 200 hours in real life talking about John Fisher, the Oakland Athletics. Sorry, the Sacramento Athletics. Sorry, that's not actually what they're called.
Sorry,
Athletics.
just the Athletics.
Just Athletics. We've talked about this. We know this. We know the ins and the outs. We've listened in on Las Vegas city council meetings. We know whose hands were greased. We know all the different sites that the A's explored to potentially stay in Oakland. However, I now know, having gone to 2 spring training games in Arizona, in which Athletics were playing in both of them, no one else knows what's happening with the A's. I heard no less than 15 people in the span of the 2 spring training baseball games that I saw A's play ask, so where are the A's playing this season?
Boots on the ground reporting
Yes.
from Bobby Wagner. You were there.
In fact, I turned around to one man and I said, they're playing in Sacramento, bro.
Yeah.
Like, get with it. You're at a spring training game. You don't even know where the A's are playing next year. But I can't even get mad at people because it was so convoluted.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes no sense. It makes no sense at all. And yet, I just wanted to tell you that to prepare you for what is coming this season. Where seeing one single man with an A's hat at every baseball game, even when the A's aren't playing in that game, which is a long-running trend that you and I have experienced, that's now going to be replaced with overhearing one single man or one single woman talking about how they don't know where the A's are playing and what's going on with them.
I think this will be my mission at baseball games that I attend this year, is just ask one fellow fan, where are the A's playing? just out of curiosity.
You're taking
just
a straw poll.
straw poll. Exactly.
You're
Ann
inspired
Seltzer
by all that.
is-
I was just going to say, you were inspired by all her fine work in Iowa.
Good. Glad we haven't missed a beat.
Dog, people don't know. People don't know.
As they shouldn't. As they shouldn't.
I did overhear a couple conversations about them moving. Unclear whether or not the people talking about that knew where they were going. At the game that I went to yesterday, I was watching your Oakland Athletics put a whooping on the Los Angeles Dodgers. Look out.
That's right.
League.
That's right.
Break up the A's? Break up the A's.
Dodgers dynasty over.
And that was without JJ Bleday in the lineup. So we're talking,
right.
Do the A's even have enough
playing the
space on
B
their
squad.
40-man roster for all of the good players that they've assembled over the last 12 to 18 months? I don't know. We're just going to have to see. There was a family that was quite annoying sitting in front of us. And then there was another family that came a couple innings later. And the annoying family, I don't know if they were Dodgers fans or not. This other family comes in, they're decked out in A's gear. They sit down, they're making some small talk. The mom from the A's family, the dad from the other family, from the annoying family.
Uh-huh.
And I'm listening to their conversation. And the dad goes, well, hey, I know that it sucks that they're moving, but we're really excited because we live in Las Vegas and we're going to buy season tickets to the A's. Meanwhile, this family that comes out all decked in A's gear, they had two young children. And they were like hardcore. You know,
Mm-hmm.
They were talking about like, oh, I'm really excited to see this reliever coming into this game to see what he looks like in spring.
Right.
And this other guy's just like, so Vegas.
Like, I mean, that sucks, but come through. You got a place to crash. That's pretty bleak, man. I'm not gonna lie.
Pretty bleak.
That makes me pretty sad to hear.
I can confirm the Kelly Green still looks cool though.
Mm-hmm. Always has.
But they shouldn't be allowed
Always
to
will.
have it anymore.
I know. They shouldn't be allowed to have cool things, period.
We should put them on a probationary period from the Kelly Green.
Right. We're desaturating you until the commissioner's office has deemed otherwise appropriate.
Fascism strikes again in America. You want to take color away?
Well, so you were at spring training.
I was in Arizona.
Had you been before?
I went to spring training 3 years ago and didn't go to any games.
Nice.
I went for work.
Best way of doing it.
I engineered interviews with many professional baseball players for the R2C2 podcast.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't make it out to any games because I was too busy. You know what I was doing?
Creating content.
Yeah, you know what I was doing.
Yeah, I know what you were doing.
You know.
The listeners know what you were doing.
I was creating content. Really, CC and Ryan were creating content, and I was bearing witness to content. But I actually went for the first time. Pretty cool experience. Pretty in line with what I was expecting, which is like a Major League Baseball game, except chiller, which is cool, I have to say, especially for your first foray into professional baseball being back in front of your eyes. I just thought it was quite nice to have a lower stakes version. And I had, you could argue, the lowest stakes version for the first game that I went to, which was Rockies versus A's on a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, a little bit of a lopsided matchup there, you would say.
I consumed 2 hot dogs, 2 beers, and a lot of fine baseball. Just fine.
As God intended, Bobby, as God intended.
The Dodgers experience at Camelback Ranch, they have their own kind of thing going on. They share a stadium with the White Sox, but it's very clear based on the signage and the decoration who paid for everything.
Right.
The Dodgers experience was cool. It was closer to, I would say, like a real Major League Baseball game, just how the stadium was, the concessions. But it was still very fun. A's won both games, so watch out. Put your bets in now. Get those odds while they're hot.
I'm going to be flying you out to Sacramento quite often this summer.
Flying me out to Sacramento. Like I'm an Instagram model.
Right.
And then conversely, the other side of that coin is that, they're juicing the orange, I would say. They're nickel and diming people as much as they can possibly get away with in the spring training experience. Tickets, not cheap. Concessions, not discounted. I heard, I don't know how verifiable this is, but my friend who I was visiting in Arizona heard from the person that he was buying his beer from that those people who work those games, the concession stands of those games, are volunteers.
What?
Volunteers.
Wait.
Listen, if this is a rumor, I'm spreading it, but that's what I heard.
All right. We have to do some digging on this. If you've ever volunteered to work at a spring training game.
We've unionized the miners.
Think of what we can do for you. 785-422-5881.
I'm so proud of you every time you remember the phone number for the pod.
Me too. Feels so good to say.
I had a good time. It just felt cool. It felt like I was around the type of person that I want to be around in the lead up to the Major League Baseball season. The Dodgers fans are out and about. Standing ovation for Freddie Freeman. He's a hero.
Mm-hmm.
No Shohei Ohtani sighting. He was not in the lineup, not involved in the game. Frankly, I don't know if he's even in the state of Arizona. Can't verify.
Wouldn't blame him if he wasn't.
The Dodgers do play in Japan in like 1 week's time. So perhaps he flew out early just to get some R&R, hang out with the old friend, the hometown friends.
You fly out a week early before the work conference, right? So that you can just hang out, spend some time at home.
It's like when you go home for Thanksgiving during college.
And you're like, I guess I'll go the whole week.
But it was fun. It was a good time. I mean, I don't need to tell people that seeing professional baseball exhibited before their very eyes is fun. You just can't. There's no replacement for it. There's just nothing that hits quite like it.
Yeah. So you would say then that your experience watching spring training baseball is changed by seeing it in person? Like, would you say the environment? Because, like, as we talked about, I think maybe it was with Jordan a few weeks ago, or no? No, it was with Steve. Okay, it was Jordan. Right, spring training baseball. Take it or leave it. I'm not really clocking in until they've started cutting 19-year-olds, like from my roster. Get these kids out of here. Get these Gen Zers out of here. But going in person is a radically different experience, as you can attest to.
Yeah, I mean, it's just there's not a whole lot of reason for me personally to watch spring training on TV. I mean, again, like I consume no less than 1,000 hours of television on baseball during a regular season. And so to add another 100 hours to that just seems like a little bit overkill, a little bit redundant, redundancies. I'm trying to reduce redundancy in my life. I don't know about you.
You and Elon.
You're actually fired. Anyway, no, I mean, it's just not unique to watch it on TV, and I think it's not that good. But to go in person and just get a chance to see guys in slightly smaller ballparks. I mean, I was sitting kind of like right behind the action. Like I said, the tickets weren't cheap, but also they're not at the price of sitting where I was sitting during a regular season game. So it's cool. And I think, frankly, my favorite part was laying out in the lawn in the outfield, just literally touching the grass, as the kids say, letting the sun recharge me to the sound with the sights and the sounds of the ballpark all around me. It's beautiful stuff.
It's beautiful stuff. Yeah. You spend one half inning out there, you're like, I don't need therapy anymore. I think I'm fixed.
That's not what I was thinking, but
right,
alas. I was thinking, actually, I get why Tristan Casas does this before every game.
That's fair, yeah.
I'm not one of these woo-woo, let the sun recharge my spirit, hold a crystal in my back pocket while I play a sport kind of people. But like, I can see where they're coming from.
You're not that far off from that.
I do have a crystal. However, I was given it by my sister.
You do have a crystal, and you also have a lucky charm that you hold during Mets playoff runs.
Well, that's a little different than like crystals. Like, that's superstition, not magic. It's a fine line, but that is a line.
Okay. All right.
You think what I do is woo-woo?
No, I don't.
I think it is a little spiritual. I believe God chooses whether or not to award me as a fan.
Right. God is sitting there. It's like, 4 p.m. time to crack open a cold one and see what I can do to Bobby's hopes today.
Yeah. Being in Arizona spring training presented me with an interesting tension for the future. Inside of me, there were two wolves. One wolf was, I'd like to see the Mets in this context. I think it'd be cool to see Juan Soto and Francisco Lindor, two massively famous and important people to me, in this kind of vibe. Because now it's like, now the Mets are just like the fucking Beatles as far as I'm concerned. Like, you can't even get close to them. But also the other wolf inside of me is, I don't want to go to Florida if I don't have to.
Right.
I'd like to get away from Florida.
Yeah.
Ideally, me and the Rays both.
Yeah.
And so those are sort of competing, but maybe in the future we can talk about going to see the Mets in Florida.
I think it'd be fun to do together. I'm on board.
A precision execution of going to Florida.
Yes.
Like a real limited operation. Like we're going down there like Desert Storm.
Right.
We have a very specific reason.
36 hours.
Wait, hold on. Desert Storm? We're gonna move down there.
As long as we hit A-Rod's compound on the way down, I'm good. Former, I think. I don't know where the A-Rod Corp headquarters are. Miami seems like a logical place.
I think New York is more likely.
He is here a lot.
It feels like you should know that.
It does feel like I should know that.
Sort of falling down on the job there.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that's my dispatch on spring training. I would say to fine listeners of this podcast, if you can go, and it's not too much hassle, and it's not too much of a financial burden, I think it's definitely worthwhile. I would not spend thousands of dollars that you don't have to go down to spring training, hoping for some never before experienced moment in your life. But if you're lucky like me, or if you're lucky like Alex and you're a baseball content creator, you know what I failed to do is I failed to approach a player with a mini mic and ask him a question that's like going to go viral on TikTok.
I know. Well, baby steps.
Yeah, maybe next year.
Next year. You needed a videographer for that anyway.
Right. We got to get you down there.
Mm-hmm.
The Richard Deakins to my Coen brothers.
I've always said this.
Oh, wait. It's Roger Deakins. The Roger Deakins to my Coen brothers.
Okay.
People are going to be pissed at me.
I know.
But we're going to leave it in because it's transparency and it's truth. It's truth-telling hour on the Tipping Pitches podcast. Okay. We have a few things to talk about on this here episode of the podcast. We also have an interview with Carson Lund, the director of a little film called Eephus, which came out at film festivals last year and is now in select theaters across the United States. It is a baseball movie about an adult baseball league playing their final game before their field gets taken away from them. That's all I will say. Hopefully some of you have seen this. If you haven't, you can still listen to this interview with Carson because he very effectively talks about why he made this movie and what he was interested in about baseball that made him want to make it the central vehicle for his first feature film. And a lot of the small decisions that he made along the way to make it feel authentic to people who devote their lives to the game of baseball, or devote their hearts to the game of baseball at least. Cool interview, cool guy, cool movie. I suggest you try to find it if you can, because if you like this podcast, I'd be surprised if you didn't find at least one or two things to like about this movie. Before we bring in Carson, we are going to talk about, as I mentioned, Stu Sternberg and the Tampa Bay Rays. A couple other small news items, some good, some bad. But before all of that, Alex, I am Bobby Wagner.
I am Alex Baisley.
And that's not how we do this intro. It's just not. It's not how we do the intro.
No, it's
and
not.
You are listening to. But this also is.
But it is. It's not wrong.
Tipping Pitches. Okay, new patrons. Thank you to Morgan, Patrick, Matthew, and Robin. If you'd like to hear your name right here in this section of the podcast, you can go sign up at patreon.com/tippingpitches. 3 different tiers. The top tier gets you access to all of our bonus episodes and the whole back catalog and every newsletter that we have written. It also gets you a handwritten holiday card at the end of every year. Receiving some word from some people.
Or the start of some years.
Receiving some word from some folks that they haven't received a holiday card. I would say that based on their names, they're in your half. So you deal with that.
They're on their way. They are. They're on their way. Actually, they've all been written at this point. So you can go to sleep well at night knowing that your holiday card has been written for you.
Right.
Because that's really what you wanted.
What is real? What is sent? You know?
What is a holiday?
Right. What is a card? I sent mine like a month ago. So if you were in my half of the alphabetical list this year, congratulations. My wrist is still recovering from writing that much. But anyway, patreon.com/tippingpitches. One more plug for our April fundraising event. I'm going to continue to plug it. This is not the last plug, but before we get into it, I wanted to plug again our April fundraising event. First and foremost, we are donating all the proceeds of our Patreon from April to a yet unselected charity. The reason that it is yet unselected is because we are soliciting suggestions for which charity we will choose. We've gotten a lot of good suggestions already. If you'd like to put a suggestion, the link is in the Google form in the description.
I like that you're pointing down to the description right now.
I'm pointing down to the description. I'm just getting ready for our inevitable
Smash
fucking
that
pivot
like button
to YouTube, bro, because apparently that's the only place that you can host pods now. Just gonna leave that there. We are raising money for LGBTQ youth access to playing sports and baseball, particularly because of the assault on trans people and trans youth that has been going on in this country for, time immemorial, but especially within the last couple of years. And we had a few charities in mind, but didn't know for certain who is doing great work in this space and wanted to not limit ourselves into what we were choosing. So we are taking suggestions in that Google form. Part of that fundraiser event will be that our first episode of April or last episode of March, depending on when we can get together and actually record it. We're kicking this fundraising event with a power hour. Some of you will remember we did a power hour in the past where we answered 60 questions in 60 minutes and drank 60 sips or shots of beer during that same time. So we need questions. We need short form questions. We need questions that we can answer in the span of 1 minute. You can also submit those in that same exact Google form that I'm pointing to in the description right now. I'm pointing. Alex is pointing too.
I see you.
You got to point, otherwise they're not going to know where to go point.
I'm pointing both hands right now.
I'm pointing hands I don't even have. We got a neon sign pointing at the link in the description. Please fill that out. We are going to announce the charity next week on the pod. We wanted to give people 2 weeks in case anybody hadn't had time to listen to last week's episode explaining what this is. So please submit if you have not already. Please submit if you don't have a charity and you just want to submit a question, that's fine too. Part of that promo is that when we do eventually select that charity or that organization, if you donate $12 or more, we will give you a discount code for a free month of our Patreon. That's the price of 1 month of our Patreon at the top tier, and that'll get you access to, like I said, everything that we've done as bonus content since we started the Patreon 3 months ago.
Since
if any of that
3 months ago,
sorry, 3 years ago. Just keeping you on your toes. If any of that was confusing to you, you can always reach out to us at tippingpitchespod@gmail.com and ask questions about what the hell we're doing here.
I sometimes wonder the same.
I can't guarantee that we'll have good answers.
Yeah.
But I can guarantee that at some point, probably 7 to 10 business days, we will try to answer them for you.
Mm-hmm. We will actually write you a handwritten response to your email.
Don't write checks that your wrist can't cash. That came out kind of weird. But we're powering through.
Yeah, we are. What do you want to talk about?
I don't know. Dealer's choice. Which one of us is the dealer? I don't know. We have a couple things that we should talk about.
Yeah.
A couple things that are like, wow, this happened.
So the A's, yes, unveiled their new Las Vegas patch. I know everyone's talking about it. We've been getting DMs left and right. What are your thoughts? And my thought is the thread count is too low. Is that a thing for patches? I don't really know how patches work.
Your inevitable menswear guy pivot is going to feed families.
Yeah, well.
You're like the menswear guy, but for sports.
But I'm critiquing still like average citizens or players or both.
Don't limit yourself.
Whoever's in the crosshairs that morning.
I mean, we need to diversify revenue streams.
It's true.
You know, Patreon's doing well, but you can never have too much money.
I know. All right, I'll get to work. I got my GQ subscription on the way.
You told me you were canceling that. The GQ box over? Oh, you're canceling the box subscription, but you're keeping
right.
the magazine
I need the written word now.
Okay. Should we start a written magazine of like
given how well we do on our digital magazine? Probably not.
Do you think it would be cool if we started a written magazine for all the baseball writers that have like just been laid off over the last 10 years and like don't really even get a chance to write about baseball anymore, and we could collect them all and all the people that we like?
I mean, yes, that sounds great. It sounds really cool.
All right. Well, if you like that idea, you know where to support us. It's patreon.com/tippingpitches. No, let's talk about a couple other things.
Yeah.
Before we bring in Carson. I think the most tipping pitches thing that happened was the story about Stu Sternberg and the Rays and Rob Manfred and a cohort of other owners pushing him to want to sell the team. But I want to save that for last because I want to get the other two small things out of the way first. The first is actually a big time bummer. They're actually both kind of bummers, but the first is, I think, more dour.
Yeah.
Of an actually tone
note. To actual baseball fandom.
Yes. And that is that Gerrit Cole will not pitch in the 2025 season because he has a torn ulnar collateral ligament and he will be getting Tommy John surgery. I got to say, just from a karmic perspective, I feel kind of bad that I made a joke about this on the pod last week.
Literally last week.
But also,
I thought about that the second I saw the notification come in.
I mean, me too. But also, that just goes to show how much of an open secret this has been since last year. He kind of got the recommendation that he probably needed to have this surgery last year. He decided to ignore it and go the rehab route and see if he could pitch in 2024. Turned out that was the right decision. I mean, he got to pitch for half a season, see how it felt. He was good, but not his great self. He turned it up in the playoffs. He was essential to their World Series run. And they got as close as you can get to winning a World Series. If they had won a World Series, we would have said it was the most legendary decision to not get a surgery in the history of sports. That being said, I mean, this comes for everyone. We said it at the time. There's only ever been one guy who's been told to get TJ, not gotten it, and continued to pitch. And his name is Masahiro Tanaka. Everyone else, like, just like Father Time comes for every player, except LeBron James, like, a torn UCL is coming for everyone who throws this hard and who has been throwing for this hard for this long. It's just the timing is always a bummer, but it always happens like this for pitchers. This happened with DeGrom. This happens with a lot of guys, is that they start ramping up again, and there's no way to possibly know how much their elbow is going to hurt because their elbows hurt all of the time until they actually, in earnest, start to ramp up to what they need to look like for a major league season. It just sucks, you know? It sucks. It's better than it happening in like late August and him missing, you know, a season and a half because of it, I guess. But it's not good
maybe
in any case. And it puts the Yankees in kind of a tough spot because they obviously lost Juan Soto, but then in earnest kind of made an effort to put a team that is as good or better on the field. You can talk about whether or not they should be spending a little more to replace what they've lost in Soto, but you can't say that they're not kind of like in competitively. And it's just like, this is not something that basically any team in baseball can effectively pivot from. I mean, they're set up better than a lot of teams, but when you lop off the best guy on your staff, and we already live in this context of starting pitching is so scarce, and when that guy on your staff was like a bulk guy too, a guy that gives you almost 200 innings every year in a way that nobody really does anymore, it's a lot of innings to replace.
Yeah, no, he radically changes the outlook of the staff and the team in general. I mean, this pitching staff is bleak now, especially with Luis Gil out for the, you know, next couple months as well with a lat strain. Like, this is already an injury riddled rotation. Whether guys who are currently injured right now or who have had checkered injury paths, like guys like Max Fried.
You know, I said that recently, and it turns out that Max Fried has actually been pretty healthy in his career. He had like one kind of on again, off again season recently.
Yeah, but didn't he miss part of a year like a couple of years ago?
I think he got a comebacker and like broke a bone.
That sounds
He's been
like
pretty durable.
It hurts. Yeah, sure. He's been fine. He's been, yeah. I mean, he's been a great pitcher. I feel like weirdly, this is just a me thing, but I always see the like really wiry, sort of like scrawny pitchers, and I'm like, when's it gonna break? When's it? And that's not a rational response for me to have. I don't even think that's how bodies work necessarily, but I just look at that.
Tell me how you do think bodies work. Like, what's your philosophy for how bodies work?
Brother. How much time you got?
I'm like, got all night.
Yeah, this changes things. Changes things for the AL East. Generally, the playoff picture.
I think my hot take is that it actually doesn't. I think the Yankees are still the best team in the AL East pretty easily.
That's crazy. But
really?
Okay. All right. Okay.
Okay, so which team do you think now eclipses them with the loss of one pitcher? Well, two pitchers because of Luis Gil.
I mean,
I still take their rotation above a lot of rotations with big question marks. I mean, weirdly, Toronto has the best starting rotation in the AL East now, but they sucked last year.
Yeah.
Or like on paper, I guess. You know, Charlie Morton's 40. that was the Orioles' big addition to their kind of mediocre starting rotation, you know? The Red Sox have some upside in the starting rotation.
I do feel like the Red Sox are going to surprise some people this year.
I mean, that I agree with. I agree with that. Adding Crochet, who, if we're talking about injuries, I mean, let's not.
Yeah,
it's not twisted with him, but Bueller, but with some potential upside. I mean, it's just a lot more up in the air than it was before.
Right. I think more than anything, it is not locked down anymore. Right. The Yankees can't confidently come into the season saying we're the clear and away favorites for this. I mean, they may still be, right? I think Fangraphs still projects them to win the AL East. But if you're the Orioles, the Red Sox, you got to smell blood in the water right now.
I wonder how much of a mental boost something like this provides other players. I'm always curious about stuff like that because realistically, how many times were either of those teams even going to see Gerrit Cole in a season? Twice? Just by happenstance, you know? Like, because he's only going to make 30 starts and that's only, 1/5-ish of Yankees games, and how many of those games fall against either of those teams. So how much does it help you head to head? I don't know. How much does it help you in the overall course of the season? I still think that the Yankees kind of are really going to live and die by like the health of their lineup more so than the health of their rotation, because I think basically every team just loses all of their starters for some point or some long stretch during the season, starting pitchers. The one thing that's like a little alarming now is that you shorten the bullpen a little bit. And that was like a very heavily taxed bullpen in October last year. That there is some sort of correlation sometimes to not just the performance, but the health of guys coming off of a long playoff run where there was a lot of high usage. So it's just a lot of question marks now. But from a fan perspective, I mean, this just sucks. Like when you don't have, this is like the one time that I actually genuinely feel for Yankees fans. I'd rather see them have all their guys and just stink.
Yeah.
Because it's like,
right. I want them to earn it.
When you lose, it's also funny with Cole too. I mean, he's been the best pitcher in baseball for the last since he signed with the Yankees. And yet still there is just so much anguish into how he performs because he gives up just back-breaking. He's been prone to give up back-breaking home runs since signing with the Yankees.
Yeah.
Which is not always his fault. Sometimes it's his pitch mix. Sometimes it's the ballpark. Sometimes it's the juiced ball. Sometimes it's a combination of all three. Sometimes he just grooves one. And this happens when you throw that hard and when you throw an elevated four-seam fastball. Sometimes you miss a little lower and it ends up in the seats. But I have found the Cole Yankees experience to be quite a litmus test for which Yankees fans know what they're talking about and which ones are just like 27 rings, bro, poison brained, you know? And I just broadly, even if you're not a Yankees fan, he is one of the best big game pitchers and one of the most fascinating guys to watch on the mound. And like now I think we're just going to get a lot more Marcus Stroman in our lives, which I think the less said about that, the better.
Part of what makes Cole on the Yankees fun, honestly, is the fact that I can actually read his facial expressions. Given that he doesn't have any of this like shit on his face, you know? And even that,
bring the beard back because
Brian Cashman's trying to take away from us. Well, maybe we'll see. I'll be watching closely.
He's a guy who needs a beard.
He's a guy who needs a beard.
All right, let's talk about the biggest crossover event since Avengers Endgame. Alex.
Okay, Grandpa. Let's put you to bed.
Don't be rude. Did you ever watch Avengers Endgame?
No.
Did you ever watch any of the Avengers movies?
I don't know. Maybe I watched a couple. Probably.
What would you say you were doing instead? Hanging out with your friends? Going to your job?
I mean, low-key, no. I was on
your wife.
I was on Reddit sharing my own edit to the film.
Fan cams, Taylor Swift Avengers fan cams.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I'm talking about Fanatics and Ticketmaster.
Mm-hmm.
God damn it, we are in a race to the bottom as a society.
It's so bad.
Can you explain what is happening here? Like, what are they doing?
I think it's just consolidation, right? It's just the idea that if we become the only place to do all your sports things, then we're the only place for you to do all your sports things. We're the place where you can buy the jerseys and you can buy tickets and you can place bets, right? It's like Fanatics is a one-stop shop for forking over your hard-earned cash to billionaires. I struggle to see, honestly, Ticketmaster's play in this, I guess. But I guess their intent is just Fanatics has the memorabilia market cornered anyway. So we might as well, that's not a stretch from pure ticket sales. Like, might as well just throw them together. So I get it. It makes sense. It's going to be suck when I have to buy my healthcare through Fanatics, but
I think that I kind of agree that I don't understand what Ticketmaster's motivation here is. But then when I think about what Ticketmaster is, they're kind of running out of ways to rip us off. They've kind of perfected it in the avenues that they already exist in. Like, there is no way to build a worse experience for buying tickets to things than Ticketmaster. From UX to fees to being able to handle the events that they say they're able to handle to just like broadly PR. Like, they're horrible at PR. No one has a positive association with the company Ticketmaster.
God.
No one's like, thank God Ticketmaster was able to seamlessly get me these tickets to see my favorite band. I love you, Ticketmaster. There's not anyone out there who's doing that. But they don't really care, right? All of their decisions are made with the idea of like, how can we get our tentacles in more places?
I mean, in the words of Phil Castellini, where are you going to go?
That's exactly right. That's why they merged with Live Nation, because it was like, we are only selling tickets right now. But hey, what if we become the exclusive ticket provider for basically every place that anyone would ever want to play a concert?
Mm-hmm.
That would be cool, right? And so now this is their foray into the entire sports ecosystem in a way that is not just, we have an agreement with XYZ Stadium. It's actually pretty rare for you to be going to a baseball game or a professional sporting event and for the only place for you to be able to buy a ticket to be Ticketmaster. Compared to music, I use Ticketmaster way less often when buying tickets to sporting events. There are secondary marketplaces like SeatGeek and Game Time and all these other places that have definitely made inroads in the sports ticketing world. And Ticketmaster certainly has some sort of like premium offerings with certain organizations, like the Yankees. I think every Friday or something like that do some sort of Ticketmaster promo deal where you can buy your tickets there. One of the stadiums that I went to for spring training was a Ticketmaster exclusive situation, and I bought the tickets on Ticketmaster. But when it comes to the rest of the sporting world, I think the leagues have a lot more like autonomy and control rather than it being totally the third-party private ticketing sector like music has become. It's just on its face so funny to have Ticketmaster, a company that has a 0% approval rating, meet up with Fanatics, a company that has like a 2% approval rating. They're like, who's really the woat? Who's really the worst of all time? We're now going to put them side by side and see which one is worse.
I think the arrangement will be that, like, you could purchase. Oh, you're checking out for your Chiefs tickets on Ticketmaster. Like, buy a Patrick Mahomes jersey while you're at it. Oh, all in one. My jersey's on the way. The game's next weekend. Unfortunately, they sent me a Jalen Hurts jersey, but them's the punches.
And unfortunately, I got bounced from the queue for buying tickets to the game, so I'm not going to that either.
Right.
But hey.
But you had the experience of logging on to fanatics.com and thinking you were going to the game.
Can I grind one specific personal axe with Ticketmaster real quick for you?
This is the only place where you can do that, frankly.
Okay, so when you use the Ticketmaster mobile app, which, like, in theory is what they want you to be using, seamless purchases are what all companies strive for, right? In today's modern e-commerce economy.
Something like that.
I'm trying to sound as much as possible like a Shopify ad. when you go in, you are logged out every single time you open the app. And to log back in, it opens a browser within the Ticketmaster app. It's
so
like
cool.
It's like they got to the point in like Web 2.0 app design where you can't actually do that many things in the app because we can't code it. And they had to have like it open a browser as if this is like 2007. I'm like,
this motherfucker's still out here using browsers.
I mean, but it within your app.
I know.
It's not like you have to like open a tab and open Ticketmaster in Safari or whatever. It's like I'm already in the app.
Yeah.
In fact, you can remember all of my saved credit card information, no problem. But you can't remember that I'm logged in, or you can't remember or figure out how to do this in the app.
Yeah, you can't remember that his password is Uncle Stevie 607. Like, come on.
Not only does it open a browser, but it gives you a pop-up that says Ticketmaster wants to use Ticketmaster.com to sign in. I thought I was already on Ticketmaster.com.
Yeah.
Aren't I?
I think you're allowed to do that. I don't know. Now that you're asking me, something tells me I don't want to say yes to this.
Dog, this would be like if you were in the MLB at Bat app and they were like, we can't show you the scores. We have to take you to MLB.com in a browser in the app that will go away if you close the app. Or
like I said, this is the place for this axe to be ground.
If you had MLB TV and it was like, we can't show the games, but we can bring you to a separate tab and you can watch it picture in picture. And you have to log in every time. Just don't have an app at all at this point.
Right. I'll just go to Ticketmaster.com on my phone.
Or I'll just like the chip that they are like inserting in my brain against my will, probably by me signing and agreeing to the terms. Yeah. We'll just know that I thought that I wanted to go to this concert or game, and that'll be tacit agreement that I am willing to pay for these tickets.
Yeah.
They already know all the shit that I want. When you compare it to like, it's so funny. People that think like capitalism is any functioning form of anything at all. Because when you compare the experience of checking out on Ticketmaster or trying to find the venue or whatever on Ticketmaster to like any other app, just any other ticketing app at all, even the ones that like I don't love, you know, like there's a couple other ones that we use frequently for our little $28 bullshit indie rock shows. You know the ones I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
It is so much better. So much better. And yet they have no chance against Ticketmaster. No chance at all. And there are people who would say to you, well, that's just because Ticketmaster is better. That's just because they won.
Mm-hmm.
Capitalism is merit-based. Right, exactly. No, they built literally the worst product. And now they're teaming up with someone who built the worst product in their sector. And they're like, I bet you both of their stock prices rose because of it.
Yeah. Hey, you can do anything. I look at this news and I think the sky is the limit for me. Michael Rubin, my line is open.
We just got to bring back fucking will call, you know?
Yes, we actually, for physical tickets. Oh my God.
I want to call a human being and say, I'd like to go to this game. And here's what I'd like to pay.
I'd like to be able to walk up. I'd like to be able to walk up to the stadium, just the front door of the stadium, and say, one ticket, please, in exchange for American money. And they say, all good here. You can go inside, sir. That easy.
You know, not only did they take that away from us, I think you still can't do that. But you know what? They've made it so that you have to pay a bigger fee to do that. You know that you have to pay a will call fee at most places now? They give you the free delivery, e-delivery of the ticket in the Ticketmaster app, but they also charge you fees in the back end when you actually check out of like $14 per ticket. That's the convenience fees. That's not the delivery fee. It's the convenience fees. Those are different things, just so you know. But that you also, if you want to pick up a physical ticket, they charge you like $5 extra for that. It's enough to make a man act
I
in
can
ways.
see the steam coming out of your ears right now. Oh my God. Baseball season is so back. I'm so ready, man.
God.
It would not be spring if I did not have a Fanatics debacle to lose my shit over.
Death to Ticketmaster. You know, I wish them nothing but the worst. Bankruptcy, frankly.
Yeah.
As soon as possible. And not one of those fucking whack ass strategic bankruptcies. I'm talking real bankruptcy where they lose it all.
Exactly.
I want assets seized.
Exactly. I want perp blocks.
Exactly. Okay. One final thing, and then we'll go to our conversation with Carson. It seems that Rob Manfred has finally heard the siren call of the Tipping Pitches podcast. He has heard our pleas. He has heard our reasoning, our sound and frank logic about how he needs to put his foot down on these small market owners. And he is using his immense power to tell Stu Sternberg sell the team. Now, he didn't listen to the millions and millions of Oakland fans who literally wore shirts and did chants that said sell the team to John J. Fisher. But you know what? He's learning from his past mistakes.
Yes.
He's growing. We're not too old to change, Rob said. Late 60s, last couple of years, last contract as commissioner. It's not too late to change.
Yeah. No, this is Manfred off the leash.
So, the Rays are a mess. They're a financial mess. They're an organizational mess. They're a logistical disaster. They are currently, need I remind you, playing in a spring training facility for the 2025 season and probably, honestly, the 2026 season. They have an upcoming deadline on March 31st that they need to decide what they are doing in terms of whether or not they are committing to a binding agreement to build another stadium in Tampa or not. They're whining right now about the cost of how much that stadium is going to cost and how much the local municipalities are willing to put forward to that. The Rays say that they're willing to put forward $700 million no matter what it costs, and that the city has to foot the bill for the rest, the difference between those. And amidst all this, as the sort of situation with the Rays has kind of put the rest of league expansion, league relocation on hold. Manfred has said multiple times now that he doesn't want to talk about the idea of expansion, even put it on the table really officially until they've sorted out what's going on with the A's and the Rays. Well, allegedly they've sorted out what's going on with the A's, even though I don't believe that, and I don't think you do either. And now the Rays are the only open question still before they can start to strategize about what comes next for the 2030s and beyond for Major League Baseball. And it sounds like the solution that Rob Manfred prefers is Sternberg sell the team to someone who actually has the money to run it, because it would that would be the easiest solution. That would avoid the most headaches possible. I noted in the story that Evan Drellick wrote breaking this news that Sternberg's response to this information was, quote, "I'm interested to read about what industry partners have told you about our franchise and its future," Sternberg said when reached for comment on Sunday.
I clocked that too. He's so cool. I love him.
Sounds like that man says, "That's mine. Good luck taking it from me."
Yeah.
So I turn it to you, Alex. What's going on in Tampa?
What's going on in Tampa is that the league doesn't need another headache. They just had 3 or 4 years of their asses being handed to them publicly. And I know that like most of the other team owners were unscathed in the Oakland debacle, but it was a black mark, I think on many baseball fans think, for the league to let things spiral out of control in the way they did. And I think that they see Sternberg, as you mentioned, as the last hurdle to expansion and all the cushy fees that come with that. And I think they're not interested in having a multi-year long, drawn-out saga again over where people are going to play. I have to think that much of this comes from other owners being upset. There's no way that Rob Manfred woke up this morning and said, Stu needs a talking to, right? Manfred does the bidding of the 30 owners who are his bosses, right? So
he would be so out of line if he was doing this or leaking this without not just approval, but fervor from the rest of the owners who are actually writing the checks.
Right, exactly. The only way this story and this idea even gets floated is if like there are quite a number of owners who are like, we need to figure this out. And I don't think it has anything to do with Stu personally. I'm sure it's just business. You know,
like
buddy.
The guy, right?
I think he's a good guy. Yeah. I think he's done his best. Put his best foot forward.
Right. He's represented himself and his franchise. Cover themselves in glory.
I think so too. He's only been sued by his minority owners like once. I mean, come on. Give the guy a break.
You got to get those numbers up. Those are rookie numbers.
Those are rookie numbers. I mean, a lot of people asking why Manfred didn't do this at the A's. I don't know. I think because he didn't want to. I think they are different situations. Sternberg has owned the team for a longer period of time. I think 17 years at this point, whereas Fisher, who's been involved since the early 2000s, really does not become the control person until 2016. And so I think there's a case to be made of like, I mean, this is what Rays fans deserve, to be very, very clear. Like, I think that I don't think they're doing it for the fans, but
you're saying they deserve to have a better owner,
to have a better owner, to have an owner who is forced to sell. Like, I think I don't think that that's the reason that they're doing this, because they're like, we think the fans deserve better. But if that's the byproduct of this,
sure,
I don't know, so be it.
Can I give you the reason as to why Manfred is doing this with the Rays and not with the A's?
Sure, but I'm a little upset you just made me pontificate about it for the last 5 minutes.
This is just my reading between the lines analysis. I don't have any information or even really like genuine factual basis for any of this, but hey, welcome to Tipping Pitches. I think that he just didn't like the personalities involved in the Oakland City Council and California politics, frankly. I think he and the league and their requisite business partners felt that it was a less politically advantageous market for them in California and Oakland in general. I think that they really drew the line in like a lobbyist fashion in that situation. And like, obviously Fisher is like a right-wing psycho conservative, like most billionaires are. But I don't even think it was really about that. Like, I don't think it's about like Oakland identity politics versus Florida identity politics. I think it's frankly about like the playbook and how much building a new stadium and shelling out for that new stadium lines up with the playbook that small to medium market owners want to follow versus how much it doesn't. And frankly, Florida politics we're open for business. We're open for, rampant corruption. We're open for like anything, and we are going to be favorable when you're here, as so long as you are like doing something. And I think Sternberg is like not even doing something really. He's trying to see how far he can push it. And he's been crying poor since the day that he became their owner, and he's still crying poor. And I think with Fisher, it was like, obviously he acted reprehensibly and he put his foot in it. But frankly, I think if you asked Manfred in like a private forum and he had truth serum, I think he would tell you like, hey, John tried, John tried. John spent $100 million of his own money on fucking renderings, and look what he has to show for it.
Right. Meanwhile, Sternberg's out here proposing
we'll play half our games in Canada.
Multiple continental splits.
Yeah,
right.
This is a clown show. This is a clown show. Yeah. Like, for everything that we say about Fisher, like it being a predetermined notion about what would happen with the A's. And obviously it's a clown show at many different steps along the way. Shutting off the replies, turning their back on the community, lying, everything Dave Kaval has done. I'm sure he's doing really great for himself right now. That's a clown show of a sort. But like, what Sternberg is like proposing for the Rays franchise is just frankly like unprofessional. They play in an unprofessional ballpark. The plan to play on 2 different countries is insane. It's just like he would be better off with a different guy running that franchise, and they don't want to take a team out of Florida. Also, players want to play in Florida. Tampa, St. Pete is like a huge hotbed of baseball development also. So it helps to have a professional franchise in that environment that they can point to as a pillar of the community. It's just that Sternberg is not holding that team up as any pillar of anything, except like how many analytics people he can hire so that he doesn't have to pay people, and except in terms of like keeping people's arbitration salaries down. He's a pillar of that community, which is all well and good, but we have the Castellinis and the Nuttings of the world for that still. We're not worried about that quota being filled of like shitty small market owners who are reviled but are still following the unwritten rules. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know we talk all the time about, Manfred papering over financial issues for teams, but there are rules in the CBA about debt leveraging, and Sternberg is not capitalized like a lot of these other guys are.
No.
Atanasio is not either, but he has been like playing ball and has been more frugal and has been falling in line about things in a way that I don't think Sternberg necessarily has. And it was notable that there was an anonymous quote in there about in defense of what the Brewers and the Padres have been doing for the last 5 years compared to what the Rays are doing. So that's my read on it. It's just that you boil it down to one sentence. It's that he would rather lose a team from California than Florida for a number of reasons. I'm not even talking about like woke DEI identity politics stuff, even though that's not like totally unrepresented in this equation, but it's not the main thing, I don't think.
Sure, but like you can, and I wouldn't, but you can make the case that, well, the Giants are already in that market, right? Mm-hmm. So they can just eat up all the East Bay baseball fans. And that's not an argument you can really make.
He did make that case.
Well, right. I mean, yes, he quite literally made that case. And that's not something you can say for Tampa Bay. Like, they are the team in that market. And so if you want to stay in that market, if you want to stay in the good graces of the politicians who are there and the community who's there, like, you want to actually make a good faith effort to show like you are willing to compromise. You could argue to like meet the community where they are.
You could argue that the other Florida team is even in more dire straits too. And so you could look up and all of a sudden you have no Florida teams. Right. Which just doesn't seem, it just doesn't feel right for Major League Baseball. You know what I mean?
No, not at all.
To look at the composition of that league financially, culturally, sociologically, and say we went from having 2 teams in Florida to no teams in Florida. Meanwhile, every guy wants to live in Florida all the time for political reasons, but also for financial and tax reasons. It just doesn't seem right. It just doesn't.
Yeah.
That's my read on the situation. Really, honestly fascinated to see where this goes, because guys do not respond well to being told they have to sell their team, but also he bought the team for $200 million in 2004, and it's now estimated at $1.2 billion. I think you could make a reasonable case to Stu Sternberg that that's decent return on investment.
It's okay, buddy.
Like, fuck off, dude.
Yeah, cash out,
take your literal $1 billion and get out of my sight. The Rays fans deserve better.
They really do.
Unfortunately, the guy that was floated is like some crazy right-wing psycho who was pardoned by Trump in a corruption case recently and who used to own the 49ers. So I'd like to have a couple competing bids if I could draw it up, ideally.
Look, we haven't had an MLB owner who's been pardoned by a president since George Steinbrenner, okay?
Oh, I thought you were going to say since George W. Bush.
I'm just saying we need some new blood in here.
That's so crazy that he was pardoned by a president.
That's right.
Are we sure that no one else has been pardoned by a president? Did Biden do a preemptive pardon of Rubenstein just in case?
Here's your Medal of Freedom, and also here's your get out of jail free card just in case.
All right. Eephus time?
Eephus time. Let's do it.
Okay, we are now joined by Carson Lund, director and co-writer of the 2024 feature film Eephus. Carson, hello. Welcome to Tipping Pitches.
Thank you. How's it going?
It's going well. What's been the mix of your appearances so far? A lot of movie pods, a lot of baseball pods, a lot of, morning talk shows. What's going on in your life?
Not a lot of pods so far, honestly. Just a few, mostly blogs and journals and, your old-fashioned press,
You're hitting the zine circuit?
Actually, a little bit of that. Actually, a little bit of radio, local radio. I was up in Bangor, Maine, and did a TV appearance just a few days ago.
Nice.
So we're getting the word out to the small towns,
Well, I'm glad to hear that you're doing local radio, because that actually segues perfectly into the first question that I wanted to ask you, which is that this movie and baseball in general, and I want to hear your opinion on that too, but this movie it has a very unique interest in like the tactile nature of baseball right from the very beginning. It's the scorecard in the credits, it's the grain on the audio and the radio voice, the pencil scratching, the binoculars, all those things. Yeah. I wanted to ask why you chose to make that such like a prominent and early on part of the film, and whether or not you had, personal experience growing up keeping score or listening to baseball on the radio that kind of set the tenor for you wanting to do that.
Yeah, I mean definitely the tactility of baseball and all the ephemera that comes along with it. It's always been a huge part of my life, and I've played my whole life, so I have kept score. I have old jerseys from when I was a kid, and they're in the basement in my home in New Hampshire. And everything's faded, and I've always enjoyed that kind of all the memorabilia that comes along with it. I've enjoyed baseball uniforms as an aesthetic, but honestly, the scorecard thing really comes from. I think my dad was a huge proponent of keeping score, and he has so many score books, also in that probably same basement. And so I've learned how to do it myself, and I think the aesthetic of those old books is really quite something. I mean, it's beautiful. Like some of the older ones, they just look amazing. Actually, we kind of styled some of the poster artwork on old scorecards and old baseball cards, and I think that even just the look of an old baseball card, like from the '60s, with all the primary colors, it kind of influenced the way we thought about how to grade this film in the color profile. So yeah, I mean, I kind of wanted to make an ultimate baseball movie, but not one that kind of spoke to the past, and to its link to all this ephemera from the past.
Yeah, I mean, this is like definitely the ultimate baseball movie, but it's also unlike any other like baseball movie or sports movie I think that I've ever seen, right? It really eschews, I think, a lot of the typical stereotypes. I don't say stereotypes negatively, but a lot of the normal beats that a typical sports movie goes through. I mean, were there any movies, I guess baseball or otherwise, that you were drawing from or you felt inspired by as you were kind of going through the creative process of making this film? I mean, it's so measured in its beats, and yeah, I'm just wondering sort of what your inspiration was, if any.
Yeah, honestly, we made a real attempt to just shield ourselves from baseball movies when we were writing this. We tried not to watch all the classics. I honestly hadn't even seen the classics in years, so I was already kind of operating from a blank slate. But I don't think we wanted those movies to inform this one. We tried to approach this one kind of from trying to make an entirely new way to structure a narrative. Right now, I can't think of any other film that takes this approach of just like a single game and uses the architecture of that game to structure narrative time. It's been. I think you can think of some examples where they might do that, but then they're doing flashbacks to the past to create all this character motivation. We really wanted you to feel like you're there on the field, and a lot of that just derives from my own experience playing. Like I wanted the viewer to feel what it's like to play in a lazy Sunday league, because I think all of those nuances, all those beats, they get paved over with a lot of the Hollywood films that have been made about baseball, in favor of just kind of like using the sport as a metaphor for some characters, building building through their character growth,
Mm-hmm.
and I really wanted this film to be much more about the actual experience of playing. It's a game that doesn't have a clock until recently, and it really creates its
I
own.
sense some judgment in that little aside there.
Well, naturally, I'm sure you're on the same page, but we wanted to like evoke an older form of baseball that could kind of go on forever, right?
Yeah, well, that was one of the things that I was interested in asking you about. The film feels very intentionally timeless. There's a lot of blending in kind of the design of the field. Obviously, these fields exist all throughout America, where it's like it was put up in 1981 and it just hasn't changed since. The phone numbers are just faded into the side of the foul poles or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But you guys very intentionally, I would guess, there's a lot of a mix of older cars, but newer looking cleats. Some of the jerseys look a little bit older. Some of the jerseys look a little bit newer. I was wondering what you think about and how you even communicated to like some of your collaborators, the actors. Is such a wonderful and such a big cast, especially for a first feature that is kind of, again, taking place in one location and over the course of one day. The nature of baseball means that there's at least 18 or 20 people that are going to be in your film, which is probably not the case for most people's first feature. I'm curious how you communicated with them, like, what year is this, what era is this, what period is this, or is this kind of like some nether region that doesn't even exist in our same corporeal world?
Yeah, it sort of evolved over the whole process. I think we always intended to write a movie that was set in the 90s, and officially speaking, it is the 90s. Mm-hmm. I had the character Franny write October 16th on the score sheet at the beginning of the movie, and I looked it up. I just picked I picked that date at random, and I looked it up, and that would be 1994, the year of the strikes.
Ominous.
So that was just serendipity, but obviously, to your point, the cars are very old. That was also serendipity. We were looking for 90s cars. Boxy old Chevrolets and things, but picture car companies don't really stock those sorts of cars. So it was more likely for us to actually find these beautiful shined muscle cars. It was actually a local guy who had a whole collection of these cars that he lent them to us for the film.
You did him a favor though, because they look wonderful in the way that the film, especially with the headlights and all. Yeah, they look amazing.
Yeah, and I think that's I'm getting to a point here, which is that like the kind of anachronisms and the feeling that you don't know what exact period you're in. I think it all plays into the timelessness of baseball, but also these guys who are holding on to the past, but stuck in the present and moving into an uncertain future. I wanted it to feel nebulous in that way. And even, also you mentioned the cleats and the helmets and bats. A lot of that stuff, it's hard to find cleats from 1992, so we had to kind of buy contemporary cleats, and we didn't have enough budget to make our own or anything. So you just kind of have to have this mix of different eras, but I think it produces this dreamlike tension in the film. And one of the things I made very clear to the actors, and we also made an attempt to work on in the script, was that we didn't have any references to the period. No one brings up Walker, Texas Ranger, or whatever is playing in the movie theaters at that time, or contemporary baseball players for that matter. And when that stuff came up in some of the light improvisations, we would do a new take, and I would try to make sure that we didn't get that in there, because again, I think it's more powerful to not exactly root it in a single year.
When I saw the Sports Authority water bottles, I was floored. God. Did you just have those lying around?
I did write that down too.
It
was like a sense memory of seeing it in the long straw sticking out of it. It's like kind of useless, because it always falls out of it and gets dirty. Yeah.
There's a lot of that stuff in there, there's some Market Basket branded seltzers that are, familiar to me from where I'm from in New Hampshire. But yeah, the Sports Authority things, I think we actually found those on eBay. So my brother, Eric Lund, helped with a lot of the production design and the early sourcing of props, and also helped with the wardrobe. He was definitely trying to find some hidden gems like Big League Chew, like who uses Big League Chew anymore,
Yeah.
Like we found a lot of that stuff, and threw it in the dugouts early on, and basically everything just would go in the dugouts, and it would get moved around over the course of the production, and we wouldn't worry about continuity, because it feels like a dugout, big mess.
One of the things that I really appreciated about the emotional core of the film is that it's not really, I mean, we've talked about the sort of atypical storytelling style of it, and I think a story like this, it would be very easy to sort of create a villain, right, that you can root against or maybe root for. I don't know, right? They're paving over the baseball field to build high-rise condominiums, right, or to build XYZ, whatever it is, and there's the big bad billionaire who's coming in and taking away all of our joy. And the movie, I think, intentionally, I think shies away from really putting a name to that. Exactly. Can you talk about that a little bit more, about sort of how those details that clearly are driving the movie, right, that is underpinning sort of what's going on the field, but it really is sort of left to the sidelines?
Yeah, I didn't want to make a didactic film about gentrification or anything like that. We really, I think for me, the theme of this film is just change and time, and it's something that everyone has to deal with. I think it's actually it throws the characters' anger into relief when you remember that it's actually a school that's going to be on this property. It's something theoretically very good for society, and I think it makes it more funny too that all these guys are complaining about that. So I think it's ultimately we're all going to have to deal with the end of different pastimes or different rituals and social gatherings that we have throughout our lives. And there's so many different reasons why that might be the case. Sometimes it is gentrification and a big bad developer. But other times, they just need to build a school. And other times it's just because your body is failing you and your knees hurt too much and you can't play anymore.
Many such cases.
So I think by making it a school, it broadens the ideas of the film, makes it more about like an existential question than kind of like a very pointed political one.
I mean this as a compliment, so bear with me here. At times, the script felt sort of like a competition of how long the characters could speak only in baseball cliches, like only in baseball aphorisms back and forth with each other. Yeah. And you're a writer on the film, and there are a couple other credited writers on the film. So I was curious what that process looked like with you and your collaborators and going back and forth and just talking about like how long can we keep going back and forth here, saying one pitch at a time, or see ball, hit ball, stay square to the ball, like those sorts of things that I just noted because I just have been fed those things since I was 5 years old.
Yeah. No, I like that. I mean, we certainly wanted this. We wanted them to speak in their own lingo, like this shared language that they've had for decades on the field. And I mean, for me, this is I think the film is kind of a study of competitive masculinity, and specifically this region, the New England region, that has produced a certain kind of repression that I've witnessed, and I'm probably guilty of myself. The idea that we can only speak to each other if we're putting each other down or talking about the game at hand. And what makes it so absurd in this scenario is that everybody is losing this thing that they love, and really they just all want to get together and go to the bar after. But there's something odd about that. They seem to only understand each other on this one field. So yeah, I think we didn't consciously say, okay, now they're going to stop talking baseball aphorisms or whatever. That just kind of happened as the dialogue thinned out over the course of the film, and the melancholy starts to seep in over that final act. Actually, they just start to speak less. Instead of speaking heart to heart, they just speak less. so the movie's very, very dense with dialogue at the beginning, and a lot of that is just the baseball lingo and these kind of like inside jokes and put downs. And then it just gets quieter over the course of the film because these men don't really know how to negotiate a relationship outside of this one context. And I think that I don't mean to kind of like criticize them or treat them like they're bunch of man-child people. Like I think there's a tenderness in it. I think even just the establishment of that language, that baseball language, that's something that is a mark of friendship and a mark of camaraderie. even if it is at the end of the day kind of elusive.
You talk about sort of as the movie progresses, as we get into kind of the final act, there's less immediate dialogue, there's more sort of soaking in, and visually, it is really arresting. I mean, your sort of background in photography, I imagined, informed a lot of the visual approaches that you took to this. But like, I mean, how did your sort of understanding of light? I mean, this literally, we are tracking the progression of a day, right? Day turns to night. I mean, how did your sort of understanding of, I guess, natural light and that and framing that maybe you took from something like photography, you speak to, what shows up on the screen in Eephus?
Yeah, I got a real obsession with location and light, and just observing it and capturing it. It's something that everywhere I go, I take a camera, and I usually around magic hour or dusk, I just start taking photos of different things. And that was certainly the case when I started scouting for this film. I mean, I looked at dozens and dozens of fields in New England and just trying to find the perfect one that had the right atmosphere, and it wasn't too loud. You couldn't hear the highway or anything like that, but it also had this sense of history. So when we landed on Soldiers Field, it was just a total blessing. And fortunately, the town was super on board. I went to the town council meeting and pitched the idea, and they were all for it when they heard Bill Lee was going to be in it. So, yeah, I mean, I once I knew I had that field, I just spent so much time there, just observing kind of how the sun would fall in that field, and how, when it would be shaded behind the trees. And I shot basically every frame of the film without people in it, just on my own, just imagining the action in the frame. And then eventually I would composite it in Photoshop. So I had like a really, really thorough storyboard for the film that was all made in Photoshop and using the photos that I took. So, a part of that was my own kind of apprehension about making a film that I wasn't shooting myself, because I've been a DP for so long, and a lot of the shorts I made, I also manned the camera and handled the light. But
you thought it would be a little too much to shoot it and direct it and edit it and write it this time around?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it really was too much.
Mm-hmm.
So much of this film was just like I had to be a baseball coach,
Yeah.
In addition to working through the lines and working through the character beats, there was just so much management of people on set that I couldn't handle that. So I'm really glad I handed the reins off to Greg Tango. But we spoke so much ahead of time about what we wanted to capture and kind of some of the visual reference points. Earlier you asked about reference points, and I mentioned no baseball films, but there's plenty of other reference points from cinema history. We talked a lot about like CinemaScope westerns from the 50s, John Ford films, and I was really into this Hungarian filmmaker Miklos Jancsó around the time that I was developing the visual scheme, and we worked through that. And then we also talked about all these movies that kind of deal with the end of something. So like Last Picture Show, Prairie Home Companion, they all have a similar kind of bittersweet tone that we wanted to capture. And so we took certain cues from that as well. But it's a movie that also has one great gift at its center, which is that it's shot in autumn in New England. I mean, It's like the most beautiful time in the region, and everyone loves fall, but it's so fleeting. And that's also a special thing about fall baseball, is it's fleeting and it's very cold, and you're trying to hold on to it for as long as you can before like a very long winter.
Yeah, and as you can see the you can see their breath coming in from the cold, and you can see there's sort of vapor coming off from the sweat as it gets colder and colder throughout the day, and they're getting more and more tired. Those little details, I think, matter so much. And also, to your point about location scouting, I love that you all selected a field where there's trees right up into the outfield fence and trees right up alongside, like next to the dugouts too, because that just feels so, there's something so like Little League or so, adult slow pitch softball league about that felt so, I don't know, honest and true to life. You mentioned, go ahead.
I mean, I just want to, the woods were really important to me, because I wanted this field to feel like a little sanctuary. And then beyond it is just this uncertain the uncertainty of the forest,
Right.
And soccer fields, just whatever that begets.
Yeah.
And two kids with a skateboard setting a ham sandwich on top of it. Yeah, that was phenomenal.
I think it is like the fear of youth and the fear of soccer specifically.
Exactly.
The two things creeping into the baseball world that we have to worry about,
Exactly.
You mentioned Bill Lee. You mentioned talking about, collaborating with the actors and kind of getting the tone right and everything. I wanted to talk for a minute about Keith William Richards, who I guess nominally plays the lead of the film because he's pitching until he abruptly, I won't spoil it for people who haven't gotten the chance to watch the movie yet, because it's one of the funniest moments of the movie, until he abruptly exits the film about 2/3 of the way through. Can you talk about just like how you landed on him and what you had seen him in before and what kind of he was putting onto the screen that you felt would translate to the tone of this film?
Absolutely. Yeah. He wasn't my first thought, but I had actually one of my PAs at the time brought it up. He's like, I think you might be able to get this guy. He just was in Uncut Gems. He's looking to work more. And then I remembered him from that film. It's the only film I'd seen him in, which is probably true of most people.
Mm-hmm.
I remembered,
me,
I remembered his face and his voice, and I thought, man, he would bring the intensity we need to this role. But I have no idea what he's like to work with as an actor. Like, it's a genuinely terrifying performance in Uncut Gems, and I needed something that had a softness to it at the same time as it had this intensity. I needed also a sense of humor, and I was so happy to find out that Keith is like one of the funniest guys I know. He's really, really entertaining, and he's always laughing. And I actually had to tamp that down a little bit for this character. But he's said actually many times that this is the only film set he's ever befriended his other cast members on, because he's usually needing to kill someone. or he's usually needing to be intimidating, so he prefers to keep them at a distance. But in this film, he was everywhere. He was always hanging out with the crew and cast after wrap. He was on the field shoveling dirt when we needed it after a rainstorm or something. Yeah, he was brilliant. And originally I intended for him to actually be in the whole film. That character stayed all the way through. And the scene you're alluding to, which I also won't spoil, came about because he had a scheduling conflict and we had to kind of write him out of the movie. And I'm really actually, as much as I would have liked to hang out with Keith for that whole month, I think that character departing, it like the bottom drops out of the movie.
Yeah.
In a way that I find very, very exciting. And I'm very glad that happened.
Yeah, it becomes a bit untethered from that point on. Yeah.
Yeah, and it just kind of the conflict shifts in a way, and these characters have to deal with new challenges. And I think in that process it becomes more kind of poetic than it was. So yeah, he's a force of nature. I intend to work with him again as well. He's actually just called me right before this. So
that's funny.
You can conference him in. It's okay. You can bring him on. It's not.
It's just instant pathos, It's like you see his face and you're like, there's a guy. There's a guy who's done a lot of guy stuff. He's lived a lot of guy lives,
That's so true.
I read that for Uncut Gems, kind of famously, he had just been approached on the street by a casting director, right? And then they cast him in that movie, and he hadn't really acted much before that, but he had this whole career as like a longshoreman before becoming an actor. And I noted that there's a little radio clip of mentioning the longshoreman like right after he's finishing an inning.
Yeah. He also cleaned out rubble after 9/11. So that is a terrifying job. It accounts for the amazing voice, but also has given him, some repercussions years down the road. But yeah, he's a really sweet guy. Like he's a real benevolent person, actually. So much, it's not quite the guy you see in Uncut Gems.
right. Well, listen, I don't want to take up too much of your time. You've been incredibly generous talking to us about this, but I'm kind of curious. I mean, we're a few weeks out from actual baseball season. What does your relationship with the game look like today? Do you have a team that you're going to like clock in on whatever March 30th that you're ready to go? Are you a little more like kind of passive in your enjoyment of it?
No, I'm a hardcore Red Sox fan. It actually reemerged. The fandom reemerged in the last decade as I started playing in a rec league in Los Angeles, and just reconnecting with the game. I just started playing more and watching more, and MLB TV helped with that for sure. And I'm actually able to like listen to the radio broadcasts, and I actually like that they start at 4 p.m. out west.
I had the exact same experience. I'm a big Mets fan. When I moved to LA for work, I was living there for about 4 years, and I was like, this is awesome. I can just start watching it at the end of my work day, miss a couple of the middle innings while I drive home, and then watch the end when I get home. And MLB TV doesn't black it out. It's like, it's exactly what you're describing.
It's awesome. I am a little worried that Castiglione won't be there this year. It's going to really change my experience of Red Sox broadcasts. But
yeah,
I'm very excited for the team this year. I'm not the kind of baseball fan who watches every team. I pay a little bit of attention to the Orioles and a little bit of attention to the Dodgers because I live there. But it's really all Red Sox for me. And I'm actually excited that John Henry finally paid a little bit of money this year.
Hey, there we go. Putting John Henry on the spot. Now we're in the real tipping pitches zone, Alex. This is what we do here.
Oh man, fuck that guy. But
there it is.
But we got Bueller, and we got Crochet. So
yeah, you got Bregman and Devers, and it's looking
got a squad
looking up.
Yeah.
Also, like sneaky. I was texting with a friend who works in baseball media recently, who's a big defender of Chaim Bloom, who was the president of baseball operations before being fired, and kind of rebuilt their farm system. And I was saying that like, he might just get no credit for this, but the Red Sox have like 4 of the best young hitters in baseball right now, and they're going to come up, and he's already moved on to greener pastures, I guess. But
yeah, absolutely.
The real ones will remember. I think
it's true. I do remember that, and I think those guys are going to get better and better. Rafaela and Abreu especially. So
yeah.
We'll see. Should be exciting.
Well, Carson, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. Everybody, go check out Eephus. Where's the best place if they don't live in a place where it's in theaters? What's the best way to go about seeing it?
Well, at the moment, theaters is the only game in town, and that's what I ultimately that's where I want people to see the film, because it's a real theatrical movie, big screen movie. But hopefully we'll get a streaming deal at some point, and that hasn't happened yet. But follow us on Instagram, Eephus Film, also eephusfilm.com. You can look around and find tickets, and drive an hour, drive an hour or two if you have to.
Put a baseball game on the radio, hop in the car, drive to see it in the theater. Exactly.
Yeah. Just follow along. We'll be updating as we go. It's playing. I think we're up to like 65 theaters now, and hopefully we'll double that by the end of March. But
it's a great film. I really encourage everyone to check it out. Hey, Carson, thank you so much for doing this and chatting with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. This has been awesome.
Okay, thank you to Carson Lund. Thank you to Stu Sternberg. Thanks to Fanatics. My big dog, Michael Rubin. The big homie. Rubes. Different Rubes. Thanks to Rubenstein, just for holding it down.
Yeah.
Doing his best. He's got the looking for work banner on his LinkedIn profile photo. That's for sure. Thanks again to our new patrons. Please, link in the description. Fill that out, the Google form for our Power Hour, for the fundraiser, for all that good stuff. Again, there's a bulleted explanation of what the details of all the fundraiser stuff is in that Google form. It's now really late, and I just landed from my flight from Arizona like 4 hours ago, so I'm running out of steam here. So
we didn't even do the bit at the beginning. Like, you quite literally did get home from the airport and then start rolling.
I mean, it's all in the name of content.
The lengths you will not go to
in
this podcast.
In the seminal 5-star masterpiece, A Few Good Men. Have you seen this film?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's good, because if you hadn't, I would encourage you to watch that before the next time.
And if I hadn't, I wouldn't admit it on this forum.
When Daniel Kaffee, the lawyer portrayed by Tom Cruise, is having his first meeting with his clients who are on trial for murder, his Marine clients who are on trial for murder, they're talking about their code and they say unit, core, God, country. My code is unit, core, God content. Thank you for listening to another episode of Tipping Pitches. We will talk to you next week.
Hello, everybody. I'm Alex Rodriguez. Tipping Pitches.
Tipping Pitches.
This is the one that I love the most.
Tipping Pitches.
So we'll see you next week. See ya!